Ladies, another live recording of the Should I Start a podcast. If you're joining us and you want an edited version of this episode, you'll find it on my podcast on all the favorite podcast platforms. Look for Should I Start a Podcast. Today, we've been having tech problems, but we have the Queen of Confidence in the house, and I'm excited to get into her story. But I'll also talk about a couple of mistakes that we make as business owner podcasters when we kind of go from a podcaster, from a business owner to a podcaster. And there are these little things that we do, like not having any call to engagements in our podcast. So I'll get into that through the show. If you don't know, We Are Podcast, our ninth iteration of Australia's first podcasting conference, which started way back in 2015, which is absolutely crazy. And we've had like some of the most amazing speakers from all over the world, from Pat Flynn to Jordan Harbinger. Jordan Harbinger's been here 4 times. It's been absolutely crazy. So if you are a business owner, podcaster, you have a podcast, you have a business, you should be at We Are Podcast. November 10th and 11th in Brisbane. It's going to be a hoot. So make sure next week, early bird tickets on for 7 days. So look for that, wearepodcast.com. And I'm not going to get into the other parts of the show. I'm just going to talk to Erika because I think that anything else I have to say is going to be useless. But Erika has got a crazy story. And apart from the fact that she's done this incredible turnaround in her life, she's got a crazy good podcast that is on the charts, has got insane amount of downloads, insane amount of ratings and reviews. And I think we're going to have fun. So, ladies and gentlemen, Erika Cramer. Erika, how's it going?
Hello, how are you, Ramsey? I'm so excited to be here.
It is so cool. Hey, I'm enjoying this. This is like the evolution of podcaster, the clubhouser podcaster to this live, whatever this is. So thank you for indulging in my little experiments. Let's
Love
talk
it.
about this, right? When you look back at your journey, what moment stands out? Like when I'm asking this question, like what popped in your head? Like what is the bit that kind of go, oh shit, that happened?
Yeah, my life journey.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, there's so much, but I think the thing that brought me to Australia, my husband died in a really terrible accident, and it was just after so much trauma that I had experienced, having him pass away. It was like TKO, like I'm done. I was like, that's too much, and that really, that experience, that pain, although I numbed out for a while, made me look to Australia and come over here. And here in Australia is where my whole life turned around, literally, like, and everything great has happened. I've had my babies and built my business. And so that's my big oh shit moment. Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I have to say that I feel like we share something similar. So 21 years ago,
Mhm.
I got to Australia and everything is changed. Like
Yeah.
everything cool that I managed to do. Oh, well, I kind of did cool stuff before, but I think the opportunity here, like, and especially coming from a different place where like things are different, you come here and you're like, wow, this is so
Yeah.
free, it's so amazing, so easy as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are the differences that you notice? Because I would love to geek out on that.
I know. Well, where are you? Where did you come from?
I came from India. So I came from
Okay.
Goa, but I came from Goa,
Yeah.
right? A very different part of India. So I didn't
Wow.
really have cultural shock in terms of like, I spoke English my whole life, so none of that, but just
Yeah.
different things. We were
Yeah.
just different. So what did you notice?
Well, I'm American.
Yeah. Yeah.
So like home of the hustle, home of the grit, home of the resilience, and
Yeah.
the land of the free and the brave, apparently,
Yeah.
So I think coming to Australia for me, it was like, what? There's only 23 million people here? That's like one city in New York. And so I still believe Australia to me feels like the land of opportunity.
Yeah.
Like America is no longer the land of opportunity. There's too many people, too many ideas, so much innovation, so much competition. In Australia, it's very like, no worries.
Yeah.
We're just chilling. And if you come in with fire in your bum and you're like, yeah, I want to do this,
Yeah.
like you could take over. And
Yeah.
there's so much that hasn't happened here. Like, you don't understand, like so much innovation and stuff that no one's thought of, that it just feels like a gold mine of opportunity, this country to me.
Yeah.
I do miss my Puerto Rican culture because there's no Puerto Ricans here.
Yeah.
I've met two, me and one other woman. That's it in the whole country. I've been here 12 years. So I'm like, I do need some like Latin flavor, but
Yeah.
other than that, it's been amazing. It's been amazing to be here and have this opportunity.
I mean, I feel exactly the same. I feel blessed. I
Yeah.
mean, life is really good. Like if when I go back, I just had this opportunity as soon as the borders opened, went back and hung out with my folks. Went for 30 days, stayed for 4 months. For the
Wow.
first time in my life, took care of my parents for 5 days because they got COVID. And I
Wow.
realized like it was this whole emotional like roller coaster. But I do kind of realize the culture part that you're talking about because it's
Mm.
just such a different thing. So,
Yeah.
and I agree with all of that. So let's talk about business, right? So
Yes.
when you think about business, like what are some of Erica's philosophies? Like, hey, you're a business. So I believe that mothers are the original entrepreneurs. Like, for example, right?
Mm.
I believe like moms like do what they have to do, whether
Yeah.
they're like hug giver, psychologist, driver, whatever, right? And it's entrepreneurs the same. And like if we are not the graphics designer one day, like the value that we put out into the world is like, diminished. So what are
Yeah.
your philosophies when it comes to business?
I feel like one of the biggest things, and lately this has come up a lot from my clients, is like if you want to make an impact on this planet, in this world, like act like it. If you want to be successful, act like it. Like we really need to, especially women, I work with women, we doubt ourselves, we question, we look to the sidelines, we're doing comparison. We have the privilege in this country, especially in this country, Australia, we have the privilege to sit in self-doubt. And it's like, you know what I'm saying? Like in America, there's a woman pregnant, 8 months pregnant on her bus at midnight to her third job. Like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, we don't have the privilege. And so I think that one of the biggest things is if you really came here to make an impact and you know you want to support people and help people and do something with your time on this planet, make it a better place, whatever it is for you,
Yeah.
then act like it. Like we don't have time to look to the sidelines. You don't have time to doubt yourself. You don't have time to question, am I good enough? Like I know this comes up. I'm not saying pretend it's not there. I'm saying make your why greater than your self doubt. Like your vision needs to set you on fire greater than your self pity and self doubt.
Yeah.
Like that's a big one for me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and the next one is like know why you're doing what you're doing because I'm sure everybody here talks about Simon Sinek. Like start with why. Like why are you doing what you're doing? Why does it matter? Why are you excited about it? Why should other people care about it? And so I think if we tap into that deep desire that we have to be of service or make money or start a business, whatever it is we want to do, I think if we're driven by that,
Yeah.
we're almost going to become unstoppable. We will maintain that fire and focus that we need to make it the long haul that is business, right?
Right. I mean, I'm so glad you're bringing all this kind of stuff up because over COVID, I had the opportunity to chat with some original Australians, like the
Yeah.
Aboriginal Australian
Yeah.
elders, and I had them on my podcast, and I was having these
Wow.
conversations, which was like insane. And it was
Yeah.
like, what I realized was here in Australia, for the longest time, everyone was saying these dumb shit that this is like, Australia's a new country. And I realized, wait a minute, Australia's actually
Yeah.
this old country with so much wisdom.
Yeah.
And, I love that what you're talking about, this privilege that we forget. And I think that I've been saying this recently over the last few years that, I just realized since the whole Black Lives Matters actually is
Mhm.
like, wait a minute, my ancestors did not have the opportunity to just say whatever they want whenever they want on this
Yeah.
platform, right? And have people from all over the world go, let me hear what this person has to say. And I was like, whoa, so I love that you're coming from that place. And I feel like those things that we kind of stop ourselves from. How do you find that resistance, especially in Australia, because this tall poppy thing is apparently a
Yeah.
thing that we decide
Thing,
to
man.
carry around. How do
Yeah.
you deal with that resistance? What comes up, and what kind of conversations are you having around those things?
Yeah, I think it is difficult. Obviously, I'm going to say I'm American, so for me, and I stand out. That's why I think that my secret here is that I get to be Latina, Puerto Rican, crazy nails, crazy hat, yo yo yo, like dressing like I'm in Miami. Like I get to do that. But I also, when I first got here, I don't know about you, but I was like, I'm not white enough. I'm not educated enough. I'm not sophisticated enough. I'm
Mm,
not well spoken enough. Like,
mm,
I felt all of that. I'm not enough, just like anyone else.
mhm.
And I think when I found that my juice is in not being like everybody else, that's my superpower. It's not my kryptonite. It's that I'm a breath of fresh air. It's that I'm like, oh my God, she's so out there and daring and whatever. Like I'm gonna be fun in a room of boring ass shit. So I'm like, oh, I could do that. So I started to think the thing that held me back the most, and I say this to everybody, the thing that you think holds you back the most is probably your superpower. And
Mm,
if you could step into that and wear that and be that, you know what I'm saying? I
yeah.
think it's going to be supportive. And so, yeah, tall poppy is difficult. I think for me, the only way through is to be the example. Show women, especially the ones that I work with, that it's possible. Show women that it's possible to make money. Women of color that it's possible to make money and be serving people during a pandemic, and that doesn't make you gross or sleazy or yucky. You know, I think we need to see examples of what's possible versus self doubt. We know we doubt, but I look for evidence of people like Viola Davis, Tony Robbins, Oprah. They should not be where they are, and look at them. So I look for evidence of who's already doing what I want to be doing that's
Mm,
had a difficult experience, because if they could do it, I could do it. If I could do it, you could do it. And that's kind of the flow that I like to lead with here, especially.
yeah. No, I mean, for me, huge. Like I find that. So I spoke English my whole life. My whole education has been in
Yeah.
English. Like, at home with my parents, I speak English, right? But when I came to
Wow.
Australia, I said some words differently. So I did not
Mm,
speak the way I'm speaking right now. Obviously, I had to change. And I find it
mm,
insane that right now, this multi-million dollar company or these companies are like, from my voice, what? Like that does not make sense. And to your
yeah.
point, right, it's such a different journey. And I love that we're sharing because I've never said these kind of things before.
Yeah.
And I love the opportunity of what we get to do. Like for example, when you're doing these things, like I feel like so many other people are looking at you who don't have the example, like you're looking at others and are
Yeah.
going, oh wait a minute, maybe I can do that too. Is that what really is the whole life? Is that it? Is that the
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, I do. I feel like if we're going to look for evidence, our mind, as you know, is programmed to look for what's not right, danger, what's bad, and nowadays what's not right is a pimple, wrinkles, cellulite's not right. If you don't have many followers, that's not right. You know, if you don't fit in. So we're looking constantly for what's messed up, what's broken, what's not right. And I'm like, if we know that we do that, and we can start to purposefully and intentionally look for the good, look for who we want to become, look for the evidence, like especially the internet and the podcast, which I know we're going to get into, but like you have no excuse now. Like I just can get on my phone if I'm feeling not good enough and Google, confidence podcast, and boom, like I'm going to get a person in my ear talking to me and giving me tools. I can go on YouTube. I can go on Instagram if I follow the right accounts. Okay. Follow
Yeah,
the right accounts is the
yeah,
key,
yeah,
and I could get inspired. So, yeah, I feel like there's so much opportunity in our digital world,
yeah.
in our world of information. It's at our fingertips.
Right.
If we live in a first world country, there's really no reason why we can't up level, feel better about ourselves, and
Yeah.
start practicing that inner confidence so we can show up and create what we want.
Yeah. I actually have a quote that I wrote at the start of the week because I heard it in an interview.
Mm.
Pressure is a privilege. And I was like, damn, yeah, that's
Yeah.
on point. So
Yeah.
let's talk about the podcast. Like what made you start the podcast and what was that journey
I
like? I
just
love that
laugh
you're laughing.
because I know, I'm like, oh shit. Okay. So Gary V, thank you very much. Who doesn't have to thank Gary V for all the burnout culture? I love you, Gary. Uh, so I had my okay. So this is a story. I was working for a corporate company here. I came as a hairdresser. I was working for L'Oreal, making like 80, 90K a year. Sales role. It was whatever. I wasn't happy. And on the side, I had a side hustle on the weekends. I was doing workshops for women. 5-year side hustle, mind
Wow.
you. So that
Yeah.
is procrastination and a half. Okay. I was doing that shit too long. And I had my second baby. I had him at home. And my first baby was like a cesarean. It was traumatic. The hospital was wild. I felt like I was a warrior. It wasn't a good experience.
Mm-hmm.
My second baby,
Mm-hmm.
I like meditated the whole time, didn't open my eyes, made cow noises, and my child came out of my body, and I was
Appeared.
like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the powerful bitch. No. And my husband was like, I don't know who you became. Like you just got this, like my body could do
Mm,
this. I had this, and I was already a powerhouse, but I was
mm,
like, I just birthed myself.
mm.
And I was in the shower where all the wisdom comes. The shower wisdom is
True
real,
that.
you
Yeah.
know? You're like,
Yeah.
oh my God, tell me all the things.
Yeah.
And I came down the stairs dripping wet in a towel, like I need to start my coaching business. Like I don't want to go back to work. And my husband, he's Sri Lankan, he's brown, he turned white. He was like, excuse me. He was like, we just had a second baby. We don't have any money. We just bought a Tiguan, like a Volkswagen that we couldn't afford. Like we were literally financially terrible, Ronsley. And I'm in my 30s. I already know better. We paid all the money, 150K to coaches and mentors and spiritual and retreats. And so we knew, but we weren't getting the result of what we thought we knew. We had knowledge, we had data, but we didn't have knowing because we weren't seeing it come
Mm,
to life.
mm,
And I said to him, I love you. I'm gonna make this work. I'm American. I'm gonna
mhm.
make this work. And he was like, okay, like you look very determined, so let's go. So that year was 2018. I started everything. I got on YouTube for 40 days on a vlog straight. I was breastfeeding my kid, working from home for L'Oreal, like selling shampoo and conditioner, building my coaching business. And he's like, start a podcast on Anchor. It doesn't matter. I'm like, cool. I don't even care where the podcast is coming from. I have shit to say. I want to serve my women. I want to talk right now. And I'm one of those people that started vlogging, just driving, talking, because I just had so much I wanted to communicate.
Yeah.
And to me, the podcast was the easiest way. So I got on Anchor in my car with my Apple headphones, with my hoops hitting the Apple headphones, with my e-tag beeping because that shit was not paid because we had no money. We were like electricity on a payment plan. We're looking for coins to buy Baker's Delight $4.50 bread. Like it wasn't
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
And that first year, I just anchored up podcasts on Anchor. That's it. And I think it was so I started that May 2018, and I'm pretty sure November a friend of mine's podcast producer, which I didn't even know that was a thing, said to me, "Hey, I just on Instagram, hey, I just checked your podcast on the charts." I'm like, "What the hell's the charts?" And she's like, "You're number 6 in Australia for mental health. Did you know that?" And I was like, "Nope." And then I was like, "Shit, I better take this serious."
Mm.
And that's where it kicked off.
Wow. I mean,
Mm.
I love an origin story, you know.
Mm.
We've got so much in common. It's crazy, right? Comparing notes, right? And
Yeah,
and
yeah.
and I love the way it's kind of gone because when you kind of look at this change that has happened, right? And your it's almost like this it feels like there was a switch that flicked and suddenly you had so much to say. What do we have to wait for that moment to happen to say stuff like what? Because like I think institutionally we're told not to say anything to stand out, right?
Yeah,
how do we deal with
yeah,
that? How do you deal with that from especially from a women's standpoint? Because that's a
yeah.
whole bunch of baggage there.
Whole other thing, honey. Like, I know. Well, I there's a thing in my company that I'm known for called the loving bitch slap. And so it's loving. I say it with love, but it's kind of like, whoosh, girl, you're amazing. What are you doing? Stop tripping. So I got a loving bitch slap from Gary Vee from the Crushing It book. So I was listening to the audio Crushing It, like on, I don't know, like I've never listened to a book like that. So I was in a place where we had no money. We had our electricity was on a payment plan. We literally just bought a car. We had a second baby. We're renting a house. All our savings went to furniture for the rented house. Like we just did stupid. This was the stupidest movements that we were making financially in our time. And my husband's business was a gym, and it was around October, November, December, January. Like nobody was going to the gym. So we were just financially effed, right?
Yeah.
And I think that I needed to be pushed up against the wall,
Mm,
pushed up against the wall to
mm,
go, what are you going to do? You're going to go back to work, to that job you hate? Or are you going to finally do the shit that you said you're going to do? What are you going to do? And I was kind of like, oh shit. So that was the shower wisdom. Like, you need to do this now. Cause I had been putting it to the side. So if anybody's watching or listening, what dream have you been putting to the side? One day I'll do that. Oh, when I get more money, when I quit my job. Nah, that shit's not going to happen. You could get hit by a bus tomorrow. Like life can go like this. So when I lost my husband, I was like, whoa, I knew that. And I was like, I'm done waiting. This was a dream that was sitting there for a while. So I was on fire. I had to do it. I was on the edge. I had no choice. It was like swim or sink, you know?
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, I wasn't doing shit before that. So I needed, sometimes we need the near death experience, someone getting cancer, a friend dying, going to a funeral to wake up and realize, shit, I'm unhappy and I have an opportunity to live. So that's the thing that made me do it. And then when I was doing it, I was just, there was so much that I was learning. So if anybody's listening or watching this, if you're consuming content, if you're in courses, if you're listening to podcasts and you're in a growth mindset, there's a lot of information that you have. And so for me, I wanted to communicate what I was learning because again, I am you, you are me, we're reflections of each other. So I wanted to share what I learned because I knew other people could learn. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
I wanted to share what I was getting. Not like I'm the teacher, I'm going to tell you. I'm like, oh my God, so Joe Dispenza, did you know? And then people will be like, wow. So people don't really care who said it. They just care who they heard it from.
Right.
And so I think that's why that shit went off. Like, oh my
Yeah.
gosh, I want to hear this. And I just shared openly. I say I got metaphorically naked on the internet. That's what I say. I was like, here I am. Here's all my shit. Here's my trauma. Here's where I doubt myself. Here's my imperfection.
Yeah.
See me because this is it. And then they were like, I feel safe with you. So people felt safe. People felt heard. People saw themselves in my story. And you can't get that level of trust and safety and know like trust if you are covered, if you are closed off, if you're not willing to share your shit, your embarrassments, your vulnerabilities. Like you could still have a business, but it's going to be transactional as fuck and it's going to be
Right.
cold. It's not going to be like safe and warm and people be like making it rain because they trust you.
Right. And nowadays more than ever, people are like, before you do anything, you're googling the shit, right? And
Yeah.
there's a saying I heard a long time ago. You are who Google says you are, and like and it's really cool that a podcast allows you to build. It builds the reps, right? Like I
Yeah.
mean, I've done 1,500 interviews. I don't even like what.
Wow.
Yeah, and when I think about that, right, I'm going. I've met 1,500 people. Oh,
That's
I
crazy.
agreed. Like that. Okay, like there are some of them I've done repeat interviews for, but it's like not that many.
Yeah.
And
That's great.
having these conversations have been absolute joy and
Yeah.
highlight of my life. I get to vibrate off your frequency for like an
Yeah.
hour, and it's like holy shit. Like you're just like, I feel taller. I feel so much confidence. Actually, is the word that
Cool.
comes to mind. So let me talk about what you do with your podcast. Right, what's the
Yes.
process like? Now, right? So what do you
Yeah.
do before you hit record? What do you do during the record phase? And what do you do after the record phase?
Yeah, so we went through a little journey where I just did my own thing. I'm one of those people that's like Googling and researching and resourceful and I will find a way to do it. So I started getting like clued up on, GarageBand and then moving to another platform. And then this woman who called me and gave me that advice or said to me that good news, I hit her up and I hired her. So then I hired my first podcast company. And I love talking and moving. So I drive. And my audience, I don't know how Ronsley, this woman said to me, Erica, your podcast is great, but the audio shit, it's shit, but it does well. And I'm mind boggled. Like she's like an audio
Yeah.
engineer. She's, I don't understand. And
Yeah.
I'm like, if you're good and if you're giving fire and if you're good, people have to listen. It doesn't matter if you got a microphone or you got headphones or your videos on, so I don't know. I just had to drop the heat. I was like, I want to say the shit that other people aren't saying,
Yeah.
and I want to speak to my woman. So for me, what we used to do was I would get in my car, literally with my Apple headphones, and just record. And you could hear me be like, "Thank you, beep beep," and the windshield wipers, everything. Like I'm talking. Like you should go back and listen. That shit is crazy. I recorded the intro when I was going over the train tracks. I don't care. You know, I was just like, this is it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't want to get it right. I just want to get it. Like, don't worry
Right.
about getting it right. Just get it. Like, go for it. So, so I did that. And then she's like, we need to re-record some of this stuff. So I got like my Yeti, as you do when you're a beginner. You get your blue Yeti
Yeah.
thinking it's good. That shit is not good. So just in
No.
case you have one,
Oh my
I'll
God!
let
Thank
you
you.
know.
Before, if you have a Yeti, ladies and gentlemen, if you're watching or anything, and you have a Yeti, please send it to me. I'll give you my mailing address only because I want to video myself burning the shit to the ground, and I want to put that on my website. And Carly Ryan, actually, if you're watching, you
Yeah,
promised me one of
Kylie.
those. You promised your Yeti so that I could make that video. Anyway, sorry, Erica, go
Yes.
on.
Hashtag we love Blue Yeti. But you don't know. So I'm doing this, I'm getting it sorted. And then what I would do, I then got like because I love being in the car. And it's tricky to record a podcast in your car. My husband's like, Volkswagen Golf is like, brrr, and I'm like, shit, I feel like I'm Puerto Rican over here, you know?
Yeah.
So I got this like thing that goes into the bottom of the phone and it's a little microphone. And then I would just hold my phone safely. There's no
Yeah.
evidence, police, so you can't arrest me. But I might have been holding my phone with, and just doing like
Yeah.
da, 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 like I'm
Hustling.
dog down the street, right? And then I'm like, that's probably not the best idea. So that we would just record like that. I would send that my voice notes. So I would record in my car into voice notes on the Apple phone. Don't tell me you can't
Yeah.
start a podcast. What?
Right.
And then I would send it right there from my phone to Google Drive. And then she would turn it into a podcast with our intro, outro, do the snippets, the audio snippets, and all that jazz. Now, what it looks like is we have another company, and I sit here with my nice microphone and I just talk. I try not to video because then I find myself going, oh, this is repurposed content. And then I'm going to blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to do that. So I just talk and I look away and I'm doing all kinds of shit with my head. And then if I feel like I want to do a video,
Yeah.
and turn an IGTV into a podcast because I do IGTV live,
Yeah.
then I'll be like IGTV so that my podcast people know that shit's not going to be like a podcast. It's going to be like an Instagram live that you got to hear because it was so fire you needed it.
Yeah.
And that's what it looks like now. And the team does everything. So that's kind of the thing now, and we do our own ads. I don't do ads in my podcast, but I'll say like this program's open or join me
Yeah.
on this thing. Our show notes, it's very much led by our voice and our team. And that's all out. So once a week I podcast every Tuesday.
Wow.
We do. Yeah.
Congratulations. Congratulations for sticking with
Thank
it.
you.
I
Yeah.
mean, I've seen a lot,
105.
right? It's crazy.
Yeah.
You touched on this, so I want to get into it.
Yeah.
You don't advertise on your podcast, but you advertise on your podcast and you advertise yourself on your podcast. So what is that like? How does the business tie into this fire that you're spitting?
Yes. So let me tell you, the podcast is our number one pillar in our business. Like
Yes.
if it was my body and I had to cut a limb off, like that shit's the body. That's not getting cut off. It's like the core pillar. Um, It's so interesting how many people can find you if you title it the right title. And if it's fire, if it's good, if it looks good and people are looking for your thing and people can find you, your ideal client can find you. So for us, it was really one of the biggest things that I said, and no offense if anybody does this, get your money, boo, like us, do you. But
Yeah.
for me, I was not trying to do any ads. I love Oprah, but I hate when she talks about some random shit in the middle of her episode, like Weight Watchers, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, Oprah, like,
Uh-huh.
why? It's
Yeah.
just frustrating. And I want to fast forward.
Yeah.
So I listen to the podcast that I like. And what I don't like about it is like 17 minutes of ads in the beginning. So for me, I was like, I'm not going to do any ads. And I don't influence and I don't align with brands. I'm just very like, nope, I'm saying this because I believe in this hat. You
Yeah.
should go buy it, not because I'm getting 20% off or whatever.
Yeah.
So that for me was an integrity move. And then what we'll do is in the beginning, if one of my programs is called the Sisterhood, and it's like a life coaching program for women, and we've had over 1,000 women join in 60 countries. It's our biggest program.
Yeah.
And when we open the doors, I'll be like, hey, I just want to let you know, blah, blah, blah. And the Sisterhood's open, letting you know, blah, blah, blah. And then show notes. We recently got funding, like third-party funding for our women to be able to work with us who couldn't financially afford it.
Wow.
That shit was a game changer. And at the end of the podcast, I talked about it. And it's so interesting. I had 15 emails that week because in the podcast I said email support at the Queen of Confidence, whatever. And I had like people, so I was like, wow, they're listening till the end and they're actioning. So I will just throw in stuff that I think they need to know. And if it's a big thing, I'll do a mini trailer podcast, like 3 minutes, and tell them what the big thing is, like big news.
Yeah.
I don't apologize. I kind of treat the podcast like Instagram stories. Like I want to keep them on
Yeah.
track and knowing what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, fascinating. I love the way you think, and I love how you're doing this thing because there's so much of stuff that we should be saying that we're not saying that it could be so cool as part
Yeah.
of our campaign and part of our documentation. Everything is content.
Yeah.
But let's talk about what happened. So you tell people about the things coming up, and they go and action it. So it doesn't matter what kind of action. Or you go, do you tell them to email you? Do they tell you tell them to like go to a link? And is that link to buy? Is that link for a call? What does that structure look like?
Yeah, so I think you have to know what your intention is. I think that's everything. So
Mm.
for me, I want people to hear me, see me, feel me, try me before they buy me. I don't want anybody buying shit when they first find me. Like, I just found you. I'm like, cool. Go listen to some podcast, go watch some IGTVs, download some free shit on my website. It's called Free Shit, and just get that.
Yeah.
And then if you like that, let's talk, because I never want someone to think they know what I'm about and then be confused, and then I get a critic by mistake. And I don't have that in my business. And I think it's because I'm like, look at me, see my nails, look how I talk. I like pink. I swear, this
Yeah.
is what you're getting. Like, I want them to know that. So I think we have to know what's the intention. Are you trying to build your list? Are you trying to get people to purchase straight away? Are you trying to get reach, like people just to know about you and get
Yeah.
some more traffic and visibility? So for me, one of the things that we do is I add everything to the show notes as always, but social media has been where we've done over seven figures. Like my second pillar that I wouldn't cut off is
Yeah.
Instagram, you know?
Yeah.
So I really go, oh my God, guys, I just did this episode. Yo, it's about friendships. You're going to love it. Let me know if you like this, blah, 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 yes or no. And then I get the engagement. And then I'm like, it's coming out on Tuesday. I'll let you know when it's out. When it comes out, I'm like, snippet, link, and also if da 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 da, like I'm trying to tell them, I'm
Yeah.
trying to guide social media over there. And then the podcast listeners, I'm trying to guide them to the show notes or guide them to the website. The
Yeah.
website's easy, and they can click on it. So I feel like we could do a better job on the page, because I send people to my podcast page, like queenofconfidence.com/ the episode. I
Yeah.
don't send anybody to Apple or Spotify.
Yeah.
Yo, no, like, let's go to my website. So
Yeah.
one of the things we're doing right now, the initiative is on every podcast, blog post on WordPress,
Yeah.
whatever, there's a freebie, because what a waste. Like, I'm
Yeah.
sending these people there and nobody is seeing a freebie or an opt-in
Yeah.
on that page. And that's something that we need to do better, which we're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's all an evolution, right? Like when I first started,
Yeah.
when I actually got famous and had the million listeners, and suddenly I had no opt-in, or I had no, whatever the newsletter lead magnet thing,
Yeah.
and I waited for that long, and then when I actually did it, my audience was already used to something different. It's like this really interesting
Yeah.
journey as a podcaster. So it's like it's fascinating. So do you do any interviews on your show, and how do you handle them?
Yeah. So I love this question, because I feel this is what I love. I'm trying to sell everybody the podcast. Definitely start a podcast. Okay. Definitely. My husband's like, you can't be boring. I'm like, yes, you can. Boring people have podcasts. They have boring voices and
Yeah.
they do well. So
Yeah.
you don't even have to be a good video person. But this is what I love about the podcast. Having a podcast to me is like I make my own rules. So I'm a solo episode. And when we look at our data, my solo episodes do way better than a guest.
I
So
see.
we know that, which is great. I,
Yeah.
I speak for 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's about it. So it's a big sister on Bluetooth telling you off and making you feel good about yourself. Go
Yep.
do the thing, 15 minutes. So when I do feel like I want to have a guest, I'll just put a guest. When I feel like talking about a certain thing and I know it's going to be like a series, I'll call it a series. So on my current podcast, we have the Single Ladies series. And those are episodes just for single women, women who are looking for love again, because we make mistakes. And that's all about that. So it'll be called Single Lady Series. Uh, Watch the red flags, let's say.
Right.
Then I have like the life lesson series. And the life lesson series was born because I wanted to write my book. And we have now. But before, I was like, how the hell am I going to write my book? The story's too big. I don't want to do that. So I was like, I'll talk my book. I'll talk about my life on the life lesson series. And I have one that's like, living with a bipolar mother, being sexually abused, losing my husband. Like,
Yeah.
so they're big. And I say, like, intro, like, look, I'm going to be talking about trauma. So just so you know, you're probably going to be triggered or cry.
Yeah.
And I cry and I just let it rip. So that's like that series. And then there'll be like the biz series.
Yeah.
And the biz series is about business. So I kind of feel like we can do whatever we want within the podcast. I don't do seasons because I'm never going to not podcast. I don't take a break. We batch on Christmas if we need a batch, but like I'm there.
Yeah.
So I feel with the episodes, you can do what you want. Like you could do we were
Right.
doing for a little while, a Friday, a Thursday IGTV 5 minute, like a Q&A. So I
Yeah.
had my normal episode and then my IGTV, we just put the audio for 5 minutes. Like, and we have 303 episodes or 304 episodes, and I started in 2018. So we weren't doing one a week. We were
Yeah.
doing a lot, you know? So
Yeah.
that's what we do. We just kind of let it be fun.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the reps are the most important thing. I mean, when I started, I was doing 3 a week, and
Wow.
it was that is big. That's where the reps came in, right? It's just like every time I did one, I was like, oh, I can do that differently, or oh, I made
Mm,
this new connection, and I think that's for me is the biggest advantage. I think everyone kind of looks at a podcast and goes, oh, it's a content tool or a marketing tool. For me, a podcast is a business development tool. I
yeah.
have been able to, like, I cannot even wrap my head around the kinds of things that have happened to me in the last 10 years from having a podcast, because I've spoken to
Yeah.
some people that have got cool shit.
Yeah.
And it's this really interesting way of building trust. And to your point, like when you think about people listening and consuming your content, like what goes through your mind? Do you have uh do you what stops you? What would stop you from doing a podcast, let's say? Let me ask you that question.
What would stop me? I think my problem, and I think my podcast producer laughs at me and is like, we need to fix that, is like, I feel like an intuitive podcaster and not spiritually intuitive. Intuitive, like this shit's on my mind. I want to talk about it. This is current. Let's go. I don't like the idea of scheduling and batching, and I don't like it because I feel that was an idea that was, and now I'm trying to put it into the future. And there's nothing wrong with it. And I think when you scale, you have to. So of course we're gonna batch. But I like the freedom of like, shit, this is hot. This just happened. The Tinder swindler just came out. I need to do a podcast about that. Like, or like something's going on right now in my world, a lesson, and I want to share it. So I like being able to work in real time, which isn't great for a team because your team wants to batch and organize you. So what would stop me is like time and pressure of like, did you do your one for next week? I
Yeah.
hate doing that. Like, are you 2 weeks ahead? Like, I don't want to do that. That takes the fun and the quickness out of it, you know? So yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably what it would be.
Yeah, it's like I think that's the biggest jump for an entrepreneur. I went through the same thing. Is like you suddenly grow so quickly, and then you have to have like the next jump is like, okay, you have people, and then if you
Yeah.
deal like, and then when you have people and you have team, you got to kind of deal with everyone operating on the same. So you have to have operational structure, and
Yep.
then the next jump from there is like, okay, you have operational structure, but everyone's doing their own thing. So you got to have like these systems and structures, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I've got to have culture as well, and then you got to start dealing with like that next. So it's like this really
No.
interesting journey, and it's like how we don't know, right? We
Yeah.
don't. How are we meant to know how to deal with culture if you're just yourself at one point, right? And when you get to like a
Exactly.
team, you're learning how to deal with all those things. So
100%. Yeah.
what I'd love to sort of ask you is when you said those series that you do you have playlists for them, and do you like capture leads from that playlist?
So I don't at the moment, but like I said, we're going through this new transition now. So
Yeah.
it might be on the strategy call on Monday. It might be there because we have to debrief podcast movement now. We got to be like, what are people doing in America? Um, so I don't have that now. And I think the biggest place, obviously, like always, is Apple. And then we have, Spotify.
Yeah.
But I try to send people to my website. And I just have, I think, Pat Flynn's player on my website.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure I could do playlists, but we haven't done it. We do have I did my book, and my book came from the podcast. So I transcribed, I don't know how many podcasts for chapters of my book, and then I added to it. And then in every page of my book, if there's a podcast, it says episode 192 with like headphones. And so at the back, there's this whole kind of like my best podcast. So we have that as a little PDF download.
Yeah.
And it's
Oh, cool.
just, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
linked, it's hyperlinked. And it's like a lot of people ask me about what about this? What about that? So I don't have a playlist, but I do have on Instagram quick replies of
Yeah.
episodes that I think most people want to
Yeah.
hear. And then that PDF.
Yeah. That's the next thing. I mean,
Mm.
I feel like there's all these different ideas. I mean, it depends on
I
where
know.
you're at, like in your business. And please, whatever I'm saying is just like depends on where you're at. But what works really well, and then what I do suggest to people who have these series, or even sometimes they don't have the series and they've done over 50 episodes, like making a playlist and saying and making it a subtopic, right? Like how you have like single ladies. So it's like a
Mm.
subtopic, and then creating lead flow from the subtopic, because then certain people are like very, you
Yeah.
know, tuned in on that, onto that subtopic, that will
Yeah.
ultimately kind of go and get the full package.
Where is it? Like, is it, you mean a playlist on your website, or do you mean like on YouTube, or do you mean
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, like it doesn't matter where it's created, right? It can be
yeah,
on Spotify, but they go to your website. There's a lead magnet which you can do right now, like just do it through
yeah.
whatever thing, and then the thank you page has the link to the playlist.
I hear you. Yeah, some
Simple,
more content, like content for them. Like this is
right?
made already for you. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because that, I
Yeah,
mean, right now people, like, if they're finding you, like, say for the first time they come across the podcast and they're like, "Oh, I'm a single lady," or like, and then they hear, "Oh, there's a single lady series. Wait, that's me. I want that."
yeah,
And then they get like a bulk you, because it's like you curated it for them, and it's like
yeah,
a whole bunch of you in their
yeah,
years going through what they're going through right now. So
yeah.
this is
I
just
love that.
like, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, yeah. It's
uh,
something we had to create on Instagram because I like it's insane, Ronsley. Like maybe 400 DMs a day, and I would say 70% of those DMs are reshares of a Spotify, reshares of a snippet, the podcast, screenshots, someone listening with their baby doing our intro, hola, hola, like little
wow,
girls, little kids. It's like I'm like, wow. And so for us, what and Instagram is our big, that's where we sell and do all of our stuff. So
yeah,
in there, I was like, we need to have a quick reply for every, you could do the quick replies. Like, what are your podcasts on this? Because I get the same, and I think we should pay attention. If you're a business owner and you keep getting the same questions, we put it in our FAQs. Like, if you're on social media, like you could set and kind of write up, like, oh,
yeah,
if you're going through a breakup, this has been my number one. Oh, body confidence, this has been my number one. And so we've done that there because we're always there.
yeah.
But interestingly, we need to think about like what you're saying now, the website and those places,
Yeah.
just as much as we think about
Yeah,
Instagram. It's
yeah,
good.
and also sort of, I'd happily talk to you about like how to sort of do the things now so that it's not getting in the way, because it's
Yeah.
like, it's this is the next step, right? It's one of the things
Mhm.
that we all go through. It's this journey, and I love what you're doing. I love the whole mission that you're on, because I just feel like a whole bunch better. When if
Mm.
someone's consuming, like, so I'm going to ask this final question before we wrap this up. What kind of tips and tricks and ideas do you have for someone starting a podcast?
Okay, so I think one of the biggest things that I didn't know initially was like the name. Um, and thankfully, we picked a good name. Um, I think we need these creative, crazy names, but it's like, what is the person looking for? What is the niche? What is the group? And so, literally, the thing that kills it for us in a good way is that it's the Confidence Chronicles podcast. Like confidence, the podcast comes up. Like the amount of
Yeah.
people that are like, oh my God, I just type in self love or I just type in confidence and your keyword gets my podcast
Mm,
is right there and it's a bright cover. It's on brand for my client. So I don't want to say don't make it about you, but it's not about you. It's
yeah.
really not about what do you like? What do you think is cool? Like, does your client like hot red, like, or pink or purple?
Right.
Like, or do you like that? So I think knowing what the title is going to be, and I would say make it easy, make it what it's about, you know?
Yeah.
Um, having really good art cover. So my first podcast, I wish I could show you guys. I made it on Canva. It was so bad. But again, I was just like, let's
Yeah.
get in there.
Yeah.
My designer was like, Erica, I redid your podcast cover for you because I think it's better. And I was like, okay, like, I don't care. Like, but now I'm realizing if you don't look professional,
Yeah.
no one's going to listen to you. If you don't already look like you're a podcast that's killing it,
Yeah.
then you're not going to stop the scroll and when
Right.
you're looking at podcast. So I would say that. And then the last thing I think that's probably the most important is tap into why you're doing it,
Yeah.
why it matters.
Yeah.
Can you genuinely talk about comic books for 1,000 episodes? And if you can't talk about comic books or making cauliflower rice, I don't know, like don't do it because it's like a blog. And
Yeah.
and that trust that you develop, if you miss 1, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, that shit is gone. Like
Yeah.
it's worse than if you would have never started it. Like
Yeah.
the consistency piece is so important. It needs to set you on fire for what you're talking about.
Yeah, huge. Where can people find your work if they're looking for like more of you? Where to
Yeah.
hear you? Where can they find you?
So I would love, no matter if you're a woman or a man, you can use this. I would love to gift your audience, those watching this or those listening, my Creating Confidence cheat sheet. So it's 5 steps.
Yeah,
We've developed this over 10 years studying confidence and realizing that there's really 5 key things that we do when we're creating self confidence. And if you're in a confidence rut, if you're kind of in self sabotage, not sure what to do, overwhelmed, lacking confidence, or courage or direction, this 5 steps is going to support you. So it's just a cheat sheet. It's a little download. You literally go step by step. And no matter where you are in your journey or in your practice of confidence,
yeah,
the next step is your way through. And it has been so awesome. So if you want to create confidence now, go get that. I'm going to give that to Ronsley and
yeah.
all of you amazing people here so that you can create self confidence. And I'm on Instagram, the Queen of Confidence on Instagram, the Confidence Chronicles podcast. Just type confidence and that shit'll come up. Yay.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all the confidence that you've just sort of given me and
Wow.
everyone else that sort of like consumed this stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, catch an edited episode of this podcast on my podcast, Should I Start a Podcast? And I'll see you at We Are Podcast 2022. It's only in 75 days, I think. So I
Wow.
look forward to that. Erica, catch
Awesome.
you soon. Thank
Thank you
you.
so much.